Hey guys, what is up? My name is Shablabo, and welcome to the second part of my starter's guide to Path of Exile. Sorry this episode's a little bit late. I wanted to get this out actually last week, but I lost track of time and I forgot to record it. Oh shit, I messed up. But anyways, on to the topic at hand. We're going to be changing this episode up just a little bit compared to what I said 2 weeks ago, not last week. I didn't do it last week because I'm bad. 2 weeks ago I said we're going to be talking on item basics in support and skill gems. However, I realized I forgot something important from choosing a class, and that's choosing a league when you create a class. So we're going to cover that, and we're going to cover everything gem related, such as skill gems, support gems, and sockets and links on items. The first topic I want to cover is choosing a league. When you're creating a class, you're presented with this screen, which you saw on the first episode of the Starter's Guide. And down here, you can see where it says League. It's automatically set to default. Right now, there's 4 leagues, default, hardcore, and there's 2 8-hour party race. They're called race leagues. We're going to go over all the leagues quickly. The default league is, I would recommend the default league to anyone who's just starting the game, or who's never played an action RPG, or enjoy more casual-like games. What the default league is, it's just the game, just the basics of the game, essentially. In the game, there's 3 acts, 1, 2, and 3, and there's 3 difficulties. When you beat Act 3 on normal, you unlock the second difficulty, called Cruel. And when you beat Act 3 Cruel, you unlock Merciless, and then after you beat Merciless, you unlock end-game maps or areas, which we're going to cover in a later episode, hopefully. I say that now, but I'm probably going to forget it, so if I forget it, remind me, you guys. Anyways, the default league, like I said, it's just the basic game. There's no penalty for dying, except for experience loss in Cruel and in Merciless. If you die in Cruel, you lose 10% of your current level. Not your current XP, but 10% of your current experience in the level. So if you have, let's say you have 5% of your XP done for that level, and you die in Cruel, you lose all of it because that's less than 10%. But if you have 15% and you die, it would take you down to 5%. Does that make sense? And in Merciless, it's a 20% experience loss. And that's default league. Hardcore league is everything default league is. However, there's one slight twist. Well, it's a major twist, to be honest. That's what makes it hardcore. If you die in hardcore, your character is removed from hardcore and put into the default league. So if you die in hardcore and you have all your good stuff on your character, all that good stuff goes into your default league. And there's no way of getting those items back or that character back into hardcore. You would have to make a new character and re-get the items. So I wouldn't recommend hardcore to people who are just starting League of Legends, wrong game. Path of Exile. There's quite a few things or obstacles you're going to have to learn how to overcome. The most annoying one would have to be desync, which is when your game decides to be stupid and it registers your character in one location while on your screen it's in another. If you want more information on that, you can easily Google that. In the races, in this case the 8-hour party race, it takes place in another hardcore league separate from this one. But how it works is, depending on the duration of the race, which can last anywhere between, I think it's 1 hour to 1 week, maybe a bit longer than that, I'm not sure. Your goal is to get your character as far through the campaign or the story and level it up as high as possible within the time limit. If your character dies, it gets sent to the default league and you're disqualified for all rewards from the race. Races have rewards which you could easily search up and find what the rewards are for the current race. Normally it's just points, and when you get points it goes towards season event reward items. And I think if you're the top character out of all the different players for your class, for instance, if you're the #1 Templar, you get a unique amulet. And that's really about it. The amulet isn't all that great. It's more of just a show-off item. I think it's called the Demigod's Amulet or something like that. It just pretty much makes your character look bigger, and you get higher rares dropped, or more rares dropped, or higher quality rares, something like that. It's really not that great. And those are the leagues you're going to come across. More may be added after this video, and some may be removed. I highly doubt any are going to be removed, but there might be some new leagues eventually added that I have no idea. So you have to keep that in mind when you watch this video. Alright guys, the second thing I want to cover are skill gems, support gems, links, and sockets. If you guys have no idea what the hell I'm talking about at this very moment, don't worry, I'm going to try to explain it to you as best as I can. In order to do that, we have to cover the very basics of skills in this game, and that is skills such as this one, it's called Ice Spear, doesn't actually come from this skill tree. This skill tree is a passive skill tree, meaning everything you choose to get on this tree are passive bonuses, meaning you don't actually see them or use them, but you know that they're there. For instance, this one here increases my spell damage. I won't actually see the spell damage be increased, but I know it's working because it changes the DPS on my skills. How you get skills in this game are from skill gems. In my inventory, I don't know what I'm hitting. In my inventory, I have a few skill gems and the other forms of gems, which we'll cover later. And how these work is you put them into sockets on items. Every item has at least one socket. In order to put a skill gem into a socket, it has to be the same color. Meaning if I wanted to put this blue skill, Freezing Pulse, into one of my sockets, the socket itself would have to be blue. As you can see, this one here is blue. I can put it in here. If I wanted to put it into this green one, I can't. It won't let me. Once you put a skill gem into a socket, you won't lose the gem. All you have to do to get it out is to right click it and it comes back out. As you can see, I put it into my wand and this gives me a new skill right here. Freezing Pulse. This is what Freezing Pulse looks like. This is the most basic kind of skill gem, an active skill. The second kind of gem I want to talk about are support gems. And support gems change how active gems work. For instance, if you see now, I shoot out one ice wave that goes fairly fast and doesn't really go that far. However, I have a few support gems, faster projectiles, which I'll put in a green socket, right here, that's connected with the blue socket, which means linked. Two sockets that are linked would have this little golden bar here. If they're not linked, it would just look like this blue socket by itself. So on this chest piece, these three are linked together, while this fourth one is not. So I'm putting on my second skill gem, Greater Multiple Projectiles, which you'll understand what the skill gems do once you start playing around with them. And I'm putting it onto my Freezing Pulse. No longer is my Freezing Pulse one shot, or one ice wave, it's now 5. This is because of my Greater Multiple Projectile support gem, which changes one projectile into 5 instead. And the second thing, if you guys didn't notice, is they move faster and they go farther than before. So I have another Freezing Pulse on just to demonstrate the difference. If you see, this Freezing Pulse only goes up to this piece of dirt right here. Well, if I were to use my 5 Freezing Pulse gem, it goes all the way up here. And that's because of the faster projectile gem. I'm getting some really crazy screen tearing at this point. Scary. And that's what support gems do. Support gems are worthless by themselves, but if you add them onto a skill gem, it makes the skill gem more powerful with a few negative consequences. The most common one is it increases the amount of mana used to cast it. But I have so much mana at this point, I can just sort of spam. So you don't really have to worry about support gems costing too much when you're a higher level. The third kind of gem I want to talk about it's another form of support, but I think it deserves its own recognition. They're called Totem gems. Totem gems essentially summon a pillar out of the ground that casts the spell it's connected to. So if you see here, this is called Ice Spear. I'm shooting this myself, and it comes from my character. If I were to put the spell totem gem onto the... Oh, this is the wrong one. Whoopsies. If I were to put it onto my Ice Spear, rather than me shooting myself, I'll find some enemies. I'll make this totem right there that shoots the ice for me, so I can cast my own spells. The third kind of gem I wish to talk about, or fourth, my bad, forgot about spell totem. The fourth kind of gem are called auras. What auras do is they give you passive buffs that reserve a percentage of your mana. The one that I just put on is known as Clarity. As you can see, if you watch my mana, it takes a little while to regenerate, right? What Clarity does, it's an aura, it increases my mana regeneration. So when I put it on, my mana comes back faster, but I lose some of it. There's multiple types of auras. The one I just put on now increases my energy shield, which is a form of defense, which we're going to cover in another episode. Unfortunately, a lot of these topics touch on slightly more complicated things, but they're still quite basic. I think if you played with the game just a little bit, you would understand the defense mechanisms and all that. You know, screw this, we're going off topic. And the other one I put on increases my resistances, which is known as Purity. Although it looks like I have no mana left, this is more than enough for me to cast any spell I want without ever slowing down. So, even though I don't have much mana left, it's perfect for me. The next thing I wish to talk about are temporal or cursed gems. The cursed gem I have here is a temporal chain. What the cursed gem does is it applies a debuff, meaning like it weakens the enemy that it's cast on. So right here is temporal chains. What temporal chains does, it slows all enemies in an area for a little while. So we're going to go demonstrate this right now. As you can see, these guys move fairly fast. Not super fast, but decent enough. If I were to cast temporal chains onto this guy, they all begin to move slightly slower. Although it's barely noticeable at this point. As my temporal chains isn't too strong, it's still there, which is worth noting. As I just completely demolished them all. So that's what a cursed gem does. There's multiple types of each kind of gem. The last thing I want to touch on, if I haven't touched on it enough already, are how sockets and links are generated, alright? Depending on what kind of weapon, and if you're using a one-handed weapon and a shield, or a two-handed weapon, determines on how many sockets that one item can get. A one-handed weapon can get 3 sockets, and a shield can get 3 sockets. Although it looks like this shield can get a 4th socket, it can't, otherwise it would be unbalanced, which this game is trying to be fairly balanced. A two-handed weapon can have up to 6 sockets. A chest piece can have up to 6. Mine's really bad, only has 4. Boots, gloves, and helmets can all have 4 as well. My helmet's not that great. And jewelry cannot have any of them. Any item with sockets can be linked together, although the chances of you getting them all linked together is extremely low. It's quite hard to get 6 sockets on my chest piece, and it's even harder to get all 6 of them to be connected. Why is it good to have them all connected, you may ask? Well, because if they're all connected, you can have as many support gems as you want onto the one active skill. One thing I forgot to mention, which I probably should have a bit earlier, is that active skills are affected by every support gem connected to them. Meaning that here, Ice Spear is my active, so if I were to put it into the socket, it wouldn't be only affected by Spell Totem, which is connected to it. Affected by every single socket that's linked together. So although it may be a bit hard to understand, an example of this would be my Ice Spear is actually getting the benefits of Elemental Proliferation, which is a more complicated skill gem to use, which we're not going to touch on once again. There's too many skill gems to touch on. Otherwise, if I were to touch on all of them, this video would be like 2 hours long, and then I couldn't even explain what half of them did. I would just read off what they do, and that would be the end of that. Getting a 6 linked item, such as a chest piece or a two-handed weapon, is extremely valuable. So if you guys are playing, and by some crazy means, you find an item that has 6 sockets, or more importantly, 6 linked together, pick it up. Don't sell it to the merchants. Keep it. You can sell it to some other people for quite a bit of money. Same goes with 5 linked sockets. Even though they're a lot more common than 6 links, they're still extremely rare to get, and they're still valuable. That's my that's my money making tip of the day. It's a pretty basic tip, but you know, it happens. So that's everything I wish to touch on in this episode. Next episode, we're going to be talking about item basics and maybe something else if I can think of something that's short. But as it stands now, it's only going to be item basics. Well, hopefully going to be item basics, because if it goes like it did this week, it's not going to be item basics, because I'm bad at this, alright? So thanks for watching, guys, and I hope you enjoyed this Path of Exile Starter Series, Episode 2, which is touching on leagues and skill and support gems and everything to do with them. Let me know what you guys want to see and what other topics you guys want me to cover on the Starter's Guide. Other than that, remember to rate, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next Starter's Guide to Path of Exile. See ya!